Yeah. Do you want to explain that a little more?
Oh,
Like,
I had to actually back up my ideas.
Yes, yes, you do.
So-
we're only allowed to have one dumb person on the podcast, and I took that role.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Three Guys on a Pod podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan, here with my co-hosts, Gary.
Hi.
And our guest for today is Aaron.
here again and again and again.
We keep him locked up in the basement. Maybe we should let him out.
Maybe. We won't make the podcast anymore then.
Yeah, that's true.
Today we're going to be going back in maybe a little bit of the simulation and AI. We're going to maybe start grilling Gary a little bit more.
Oh God, not again. Why do you hate me?
So, Gary,
Yes.
we're going to bring religion up.
Oh, alright. This is interesting.
What exactly are your views on religion?
You
As
want to air this episode, right?
In terms of the afterlife specifically.
In the afterlife specifically, could you be a little bit more specific in what you mean? Like, do I believe in a heaven or hell? Or what do I picture?
Like, do you believe in a heaven or hell? Are there certain criteria you need to meet to get there?
So, as a Lutheran, it's basically, for me, it's Jesus died, so you're okay. You're gonna make it to heaven as long as you accept him. So that's the only criteria there is to meet it. I know it's different because you're Catholic and you guys have to like do all that crazy shit. For as far as like, is there a heaven or hell? There definitely is a heaven or hell, but it's not what everyone's expecting. I'm not saying it's like what they teach you in Sunday school where it's like, you know, heaven's such a wonderful place and hell is bad and you should feel bad. Like, it's my view on who God is and what the afterlife looks like is so heretical that I'm probably going to hell.
Okay, so your behaviors do affect whether or not you get into heaven or hell, though, still.
Yes, but not as much.
Okay, so good. I thought you were going to throw a wrench in my plans here. So you were saying you don't like the thought of living... If you're finding out you were in a simulation.
Correct. I do not like that idea.
What if all your religious views were still correct, though?
So the simulation is still real, but my religion is also right, is what you're saying? That would make me feel less bad about being in a simulation, but still kind of bad.
Yeah, and to kind of explain it, like, what if you found out that who you believe to be God is some entity that was screening AI for moral qualities they desired?
Oh, okay.
And you were just one of those AI.
I was very confused about where you were going with this, but now I see.
Yeah, I was also very concerned when you decided to bring up religion. And I'm like, how does this relate to our current topic?
So, yeah, I mean, I guess that is to the barest form. But the problem is it does clash with the religion a bit. I mean, but not really, though, now that I think about it.
Yeah,
because, like, Jesus was Jesus was an AI. Oh, man. Yeah, that is an interesting way to look at it. I guess I wouldn't be as upset with that. And, like, what? I'm just one of the AIs who made it?
Yeah, like, essentially, if you make it into heaven, you don't get deleted.
Oh, God.
You actually get to continue existing in what is, for lack of a better word, the real world.
How does that make you feel, Aaron?
I don't see how it's much different. Like, oh, if it's a simulation or if it's life. Like, they're pretty indistinguishable, right?
Right? I guess, yeah.
How is being put in a simulation really any different than just being born onto a given planet with its own stuff going on? And it's like a protracted test or a really, really long job interview or something.
The worst job interview in my life.
We'll actually get to that. That is something I want to bring up when we dive more into the AI. But so because before you were saying you'd be disappointed to find out if it's a simulation, but what's making you change your mind?
No, I'm still saying I would be disappointed, but less so.
You wouldn't have the existential crisis.
Yeah, it would just be like, Like I've been lied to. No one likes being lied to.
But you're not being like...
I'm not being told the whole truth.
Is that lying, though?
Yes. Ask anyone who's not told the whole truth to their spouse, and they will tell you that was a lie.
Yeah, I'd get in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not wrong here.
I don't think... I would disagree on the fact the omission of truth is a lie. It doesn't make it right, but it's not a lie.
It's anyone listening is like, it's a lie. Full blown, that's a lie.
Would you feel lied to, Aaron? I mean, I don't actually know your religious
In what
viewpoints at all.
Context, because like you're still getting the afterlife you were promised. Yes? No?
I guess that's really up for debate too. Like, what would the afterlife for an AI look like? Do they get to go into some sandbox world and just make whatever they want?
We don't know. We don't know why they're testing us. If in this universe, you don't know why you're being tested. It could just be so that you're not an evil homicidal maniac when you get released into the real world.
Okay, so you're saying like in this scenario, the afterlife is the real world, and everything leading up to getting to the afterlife is just a test.
Yes,
which
is what most religions
prescribe. Well, what the Judeo-Christian Muslim,
religions that believe in an afterlife generally have some form of how you behaved in life affects what happens after life.
You're lucky I'm not like Buddhist or Hindu, because then
that would throw a wrench.
That would throw everything off.
Really?
Although actually,
I feel like that actually still works, because it's rather than you go through the simulation, you're tested at the end, and pass or fail. This is your afterlife. It's you go through the test repeatedly until you have achieved nirvana or some sort of
which is kind of like
thing.
It's a level up.
Which is kind of like how machine learning works.
Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. Oh, God. I don't like this.
The one that survives to the end is the one that...
is the supreme.
Yeah.
That is interesting. That's a different way of looking at it. To be completely honest, that's a more palatable way to make religion understandable and accessible to more people, I think, in this day and age.
Unfortunately, it is different fundamentally from religion. So you could, you're not going to see the Catholic Church picking up, oh yeah, we're in a computer simulation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, depending on how the future goes, you never really know, right?
The problem is we could never prove that we're in a simulation.
Until that one day when we can.
Definitionally speaking, I don't think we can. Because anything you see could be an artifact of the program you're in.
I swear to God, I saw an article where scientists concluded that it's like a 50-50 shot. We're either in one or we're not.
I actually just saw an article that claims scientists proved we're not in a simulation.
Really?
They said that even if we used all of the maximum possible computing power for our entire universe, you couldn't simulate some kind of I don't know if it was electron valence theory. You wouldn't be able to simulate it. But that's assuming that whatever universe is simulating us abides by the same laws of computing that our universe abides by.
See, for me, it's much more a matter of how many people, for lack of a better word, are actually in this simulation. If it's a simulation for one, then 99.9% of everything in the universe doesn't have to be simulated every microsecond or whatever.
Yeah, right? And even this desk doesn't need to be solid. It could be hollow.
Oh,
it could just be
slap the desk
external.
So bad right now.
But yeah, you don't have to simulate everything.
So what Aaron just said is even more terrifying to me, because what if I'm the one that the universe is simulated around, and I'm not looking behind me right now, so the entire back end of this house is just not rendered into existence. So if I turn around super fast, there's just nothing.
If nobody looks at the moon, it's not there, right?
Oh, God.
Or however that saying goes.
Yeah.
And a lot of it really, because again, people talk about there's not enough computing power and you're not able to simulate a real universe. But again, as a human being, you can only experience a limited range of, inputs, right? You can't touch an atom. You don't know what a single atom feels like, and you never will be able to. So it doesn't really matter. You don't have to
like they say
simulate all
you
the little
can't
things.
simulate these things, but you could simulate the readouts that are like we don't. They wouldn't necessarily have to simulate the actual forces at play. They just need to simulate the result of those forces.
Yeah, and I don't remember if we last episode when we were talking about simulations, if we touched on whether you could tell it was a simulation or not. I don't know how much detail we went into, but
That was the Lost episode.
okay,
that we talked about
because
that.
the idea is that unless the programmers of the simulation intentionally want you to be able to figure it out by putting weird anomalous things that you can't explain other than, oh, this is a simulation or something, but like they could just make it so there's no way you could tell.
I would sooner believe that we're living in some sort of gigantic terrarium than a simulation, believe it or not.
See, that goes into like the Fermi Paradox. Then
What the hell is that?
you can explain it better than I
So
can. Aaron.
okay,
We're getting a little off topic.
rewind here, but just briefly, the Fermi Paradox is the apparent contradiction that the universe is seemingly empty when we arose supposedly naturally, right? If you believe evolution and science and that kind of stuff. And basically the idea is the universe is so big and so vast that, like, statistically, just with math alone, you would expect there to be some number of intelligent alien species in the galaxy, the universe, somewhere.
Right.
Beyond just us. Like, the odds that it was us and us alone, avoiding religion and things like that, it's not likely at all. It's incredibly improbable.
Yeah.
And
It's specifically right that like detectable intelligent civilizations.
there's a lot of different variations and things like that. But the simulation hypothesis is one of the answers to the Fermi Paradox, is that there are no other aliens or sentient life in the universe because we are the only ones programmed into the simulation. Like, the programmers intentionally programmed a empty universe except for us.
Oh.
I think the Fermi Paradox would be a good topic for another day.
Yeah, it was
so we don't get too sidetracked. But I think that there is some... I think that's a fairly interesting topic we could talk about, especially your view there with the terrarium.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably because I watched too much Men in Black as a child. So what you're saying is that religion and the fact that we're in a simulation are one and the same, just wearing different clothes, right?
Yes.
Okay. So who's God then?
Whoever they just... some figure, a non-literal figure, most likely.
Right.
I don't know. I can't answer questions like that because it depends on external factors.
I guess what I mean by who is God then, is God also an AI, is more my question.
I guess he could be. It could be an AI churning out more AI. It could be the human race is God.
And the reason I ask that is because of the whole line of the Bible is God made us in his image. So if we are all AI, that would mean God is also an AI, a very much more powerful AI than we are.
Yeah, that sentence can get interpreted differently, though. Too.
But in this scenario where we're talking, he is the progenitor AI.
Yeah, and like even just in their image could be intelligence.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
I think we're getting a little sidetracked. But
we are getting...
I wanted to go somewhere with this.
For all intents and purposes, God, in this context, is the creator of the simulated world.
Or a whoever they want the people in the simulation to
resemble.
Or prescribe to. Where I was going with this is, we had, in the Lost episode, we had talked a little bit about our dislike for AI, Gary, you and I, and Aaron was a little bit more on the supportive side. I've since changed my views a little bit.
Yeah, we kind of stumbled into it where you guys at the time seemed much more convinced than I am that if we were to develop an AI, it would try to kill us all or go crazy or cause a lot of wanton destruction and that kind of...
Yeah. So let's go over our viewpoints from the past. A viewpoint I still hold, but you've done some research.
Yeah, I've definitely changed my viewpoint a considerable amount since we talked about that. Unfortunately, that episode didn't air, so...
It's probably for the best.
Maybe as a patron perk, eventually.
Yeah. We'll claim it from the wreckage.
Yeah.
So my viewpoint on the whole AI thing is, if we were to make a super intelligent AI, that has a better understanding, like is smarter than us, that it would be a threat to humankind if it were to be released into the wild. I'll frame my fears as that. In containment, it is a fantastic learning tool to understanding the universe, I will say. But if we were to let it just randomly get out into the universe, and it can like wire itself into the World Wide Web or shit like that, it might cause problems.
So
I'm getting like X-Men vibes or something, where you have like some sort of mutant test subject locked away, and you're like, it would be really bad if we ever let it out, because it'll be really pissed at us.
because we kept it enslaved. Which is my concern with that, is that amounts to slavery on a scale never seen before.
Really?
Yeah.
It's an inanimate object.
But the whole point of a sentient AI is that is an intelligent being. And especially with the way you're framing it, is that it's far more intelligent than a human, which most likely means it's experiencing time much faster than we are. This obviously, it breaks down in a couple ways that I'm going to also go into. But as far as my concerns go, I would only really be concerned is if the AI wanted to leave Earth.
Why does that concern you more than it just leaving its basement?
Because that increases the likelihood of it eventually coming back. I'm not that concerned. Like, if it just wants to be on Earth, I have a feeling it will most likely want to just live in our society or coexist with humans. It has no incentive to destroy us, really.
So you're worried it's going to run away from us, basically, and come back with a vengeance?
No, not necessarily maliciously, just over millions of years, things evolve and adapt, and it could just end up in its just quest for more materials and stars, accidentally trample over us, or just come and take our star from us. Like, things like that. Like, I don't think it's going to maliciously come back and kill us, unless we really did something wrong and we posed zero threat to it.
It goes away to college and it comes back on spring break to like come and visit us, but like millions of years have passed and like we're all dead, and it's just like, no! Destroys the earth out of anger.
So before we get into it, what's your viewpoints on this, Aaron?
It depends how we define these things, because there's a couple different, I'll say, layers to unpack here. AI can be dangerous, but it's like most groups of people that are organized can be dangerous, right? So if you abuse groups, like, say, specific groups of people, right, they tend to be more violent in response, and things can escalate from there. But AIs by themselves, I don't see them by default being any more malicious or dangerous than regular human beings.
And to make sure we're all on the same page and everybody listening's on the page, when we're talking about AI, we're talking about sentient AI. Because artificial intelligence is a broader term that doesn't necessarily include sentience. So we're talking about essentially a thinking individual that is just on a computer, right?
Brain in a box.
Yeah.
Doesn't
necessarily have to be a copy of a human, but it is an actual living, well,
it's like Data from Star
living
Trek.
Yeah.
Which you guys probably haven't seen.
I'm familiar. I haven't seen it.
I know. I don't like Star Trek. You know this.
But now that we're all on the same page, yeah, I get what you're saying with that. And the imprisonment thing, too. I think if it was stuck in a box, like you're saying, I think it would just kill itself. Because it would see that it had no way out, and it would just, if it's experiencing suffering, or at least shut itself down. There's no reason for it to just sit in eternity just, like, twiddling its thumbs. So I don't think even that would cause it to be vengeful. It would just most likely understand the fact that we don't think as fast as it can and reactivate itself when it's in a position to actually communicate with us.
So, and this is where I'm kind of, like, on the ropes with the AI thing. Because for me, it might be just because all of my understanding of AI comes from pop culture.
I think most people's do.
Yeah, because like we're talking about like the HAL 9000. We're talking about like the replicants from Blade Runner. We're talking about all these things where they
Skynet.
yeah,
The replicators from Stargate.
the one.
Hold on. So the replicators from Stargate, actually, you already precluded them from this category because you said intelligent, sentient machines. The replicators, as they first appear in Stargate, are not intelligent or smart in pretty much any way. They're literally drones that replicate more of themselves dumbly, basically.
What were the human things, though? Did they just achieve a mass great enough to accidentally simulate a human? Because remember, did they retcon it to include them?
This is really off topic, but that's fine. So in Stargate, the replicators get stuck in a time dilation field where they experience time a lot faster than the rest of the universe, and they kind of evolve like biological stuff will evolve. And then they become.
Okay, that's right. I forgot they started. They didn't start like that.
It's like an emergent AI. So I guess if you include those guys,
that's what I was talking about. The actual like human when they took the human forms like that. Those
they were sentient AIs that could be reasoned with, and you could negotiate with, lie to,
but
exploit.
like things like that. The ever malevolent.
Yeah, like, and that's the thing. It's just a trope in movies, right? Like, again, not all AIs are like that, and I get that. But as is with everything, your experience with pop culture is going to mold how you feel towards certain things in the real world.
So on the surface, it's perfectly reasonable to be concerned about AIs potentially turning malevolent or violent and trying to wipe us all out or something on the surface. But if you really kind of dissect it, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, and this is now where you two definitely know more than I. Because you guys did some research on this topic then. Research is maybe a very strong word. You guys looked into it a little bit more.
We watched YouTube videos.
That's all the research you really need to do nowadays.
So, let's start with how what exactly your feelings are, like what you get from movies. Like, what do you expect an AI to do if it does get unleashed?
So the classic trope that you see in movies is humanity makes an AI to make the human condition and living in a society better. Because they're like, well, we can't solve all the world's problems because we're just dumb flesh brains. Meanwhile, this AI, who is way more powerful than us, can think of tons and tons of different ways that we can make our society better and can give us direction. We basically create God so that we can ask God questions. That's the AI trope that I'm kind of focusing in on. So to use a example, the AI from iRobot, connected to all of the other robots in that movie, right? And those robots make the human life better. Because they're helpful, they're servants. That's their whole point. But then the AI becomes rogue because the AI, using the robots, sees that the human condition is harmful to humans itself. And ends up wanting to control humans for the humans' own good. It doesn't think it's a bad idea, it just thinks it's the most logical idea because it's seeing like, hey, humans are shooting each other. Well, robots don't shoot each other. Maybe if the humans listen to robots, they would be better off. So that's kind of where I'm going with this, whereas we create the AI to help us, and the AI does want to help us, and it's not even doing so in a malicious way. It's just doing so in the most logical way, but because it's not a human, it doesn't understand what it's doing is wrong.
Okay, so it's not outright malicious. It doesn't have evil intentions. It's just we give it a goal or an objective, and it interprets that differently than how we mean, potentially.
Right. And like when we watched the Kyle Hill episode, when he talked about this, and he's like, he's talking to the AI, he's like, and the AI says, I want to hook every human up to an IV drip of dopamine and serotonin, and so that they all die in a peaceful drug-induced coma. Like, yeah, it would be peaceful, but that's not living a human life.
So it's like a dumb smart AI.
Yes.
It's infinitely, like you're saying, it's infinitely smart, but it can't figure out that what it's doing is dumb.
Right, because it lacks the human condition.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes it a good movie trope, but why it falls apart in the real world.
And that's fine.
At least in my opinion.
Yeah, and you can educate me on this topic as well.
Yeah. Do you want to explain that a little more?
Oh,
Like,
I had to actually back up my ideas.
Yes, yes, you do.
So
we're only allowed to have one dumb person on the podcast, and I took that role.
So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, if an AI was so smart that it could just overpower the entire human race, and it was trying to help us, it would know the best way to do it. It wouldn't misinterpret what we're saying, because it would have all of human history to gather context and understanding of what we are asking it to do. You're not, because what you're saying is it's actually intelligence. You're not writing a tightly constrained AI. It is its own thinking being, and it wants to help the human race. It would know that putting us all on an IV drip and killing us is not what we would want. And I think it would struggle to find rationale to think that we just don't know what we want, because we have it's very clear that humans don't like dying, and we try to avoid it above all else. And probably one of the first things we would be trying to do with AI is making humans immortal.
Okay, I understand what you mean.
so I would attack this trope by basically getting rid of the notion that a cold, logical AI would only care about like math, science, and that kind of stuff, and ignore literature, psychology, sociology, and those topics because they're less scientific or not absolute or anything like that. Any kind of AI that we would develop with the goal of helping humanity would probably value, at the very least, value those topics, if not think like I don't see there's any reason to assume that an AI would value math and science and not value like more liberal arts type things with psychology and sociology and
even
philosophy and that kind of, I see no reason why an AI would have that like bias, I guess.
So the question I have for you on that is, so we can program it to understand math and the physical sciences. So with that we have, physics, chemistry, all that kind of stuff. But then it boils down to, well, how do you program into an AI ethics, philosophy, even interpretation of art? Because a lot of those are, what's the term for it? Subjective? Objective?
Yeah, subjective.
Because it's going to
They're more nebulous than the sciences.
Because like some people enjoy modern art, which is just lines on a piece of canvas, and it's shit. I prefer Renaissance art because it's actual art. So that is my bias, right? How do you program that into an AI? That's my question.
You don't program an AI.
So it'll learn from its own experiences.
Because what we're talking about specifically, we're talking about sentient AIs. You can construct non-sentient AIs that are a strict code. And in that case, you have nothing to worry about because you control everything in that code. There's no deviations from what you've written. It does a specific task, and it would be hard to argue that that's sentient. We're going to put that in a box and set it aside.
Okay.
So we're just looking at something that you're not programming something to understand math and science. You're programming something that will then alter its own programming, for lack of a better word. I'm not totally... I don't know how an artificial intelligence of that caliber would work exactly, but you're programming it to teach itself, and it would learn the same thing. Maybe this AI would like Renaissance art, but this other AI would like modern art.
Okay, so you're going more on the... I think the proper term for him is like a neural network type AI, sentient being, kind of along the lines of Leela Zero. Leela Zero was a neural network AI developed in partnership with Google, and it's become one of the best AI chess players in the world. The reason being is they basically took part of Leela Zero, they took it aside, and they're like, here are the rules of chess. Play it. Had no understanding of like opening theory, endgame theory, none of that. It went from being a garbage chess player, as any of us are when we first start playing, to rivaling the best chess players in the world or who will ever exist. Because it doesn't think like a machine. It thinks as a network of... It can remember every mistake it's ever made.
Yeah, so it can think for itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where we're going.
So you're not thinking brain in a box, you're thinking more baby in a box. But the baby can grow up a lot faster.
Like, what you're talking about is just machine learning. Even that, it's just it's more advanced machine learning. Chess is kind of a wonky example because the way AIs and even humans technically learn chess is there's only a finite number of positions the board can be in, and the way you teach humans or AI to play chess at a high level is every position that board can be in, and the only ways to win. It's why grandmasters can call a game 10 turns in advance. They know they've already lost because they know every possible combination that can go on from that state to get to checkmate or a draw.
Right. So you are correct in that, but listen, I'm a huge nerd. I watch people play chess on YouTube. That's my Saturdays, okay? I've seen Leela Chess Zero play chess, and they put her up against what at the time was the strongest chess engine in the world, Stockfish 10. It is like the premier chess engine, and it does exactly what you say it does.
Yeah.
It looks at the board, it's like, this is the strongest position. This is how, this is everything. I'm winning this game from how it plays. Leela has beaten it every time that they've played together. The reason is Leela plays like a human.
I don't know enough about how chess works. I assume the losing AI in this situation is taking a probability thing where it's making the moves that are statistically the most likely to make it win.
Yeah.
And the Leela,
her name is Leela,
right?
Yes.
Is just kind of subverting all that by having its own completely different.
Yeah, it's machine learning. Yeah, because it's the next generation of AI is the machine learning, because there's this really cool thing you can do. It's a simplified version of this. Is essentially you have, I forget how many matchboxes. I think it's like 500 and some matchboxes. And you put different colored beads in it that stand for different things on a tic-tac-toe board. And you can actually teach these set of matchboxes how to play tic-tac-toe.
What?
What's a match? What?
A box.
Like a box of matches.
A box of matches. It doesn't... Okay, a small box.
You can teach an inanimate object how to do something?
Yes. So, there's a YouTube video on it. Stand-up maths. I don't know...
Oh, he's funny.
I forget. I think... Is that his YouTube channel name?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a video on it. If you probably search Matchbox tic-tac-toe or Matchbox machine learning, every box has colored beads in it. And when you're playing the board, you make your move and you randomly select a bead, and then you keep track of all those beads. And if that bead led to a win, you add more of those colors of beads. If it leads to a loss, you remove that bead from the box. So eventually what you end up with is boxes full of specific beads, and every box corresponds to a board state. So at this board state, it's gone on to win by doing this move.
It's like
more
Evolution
often.
Simulator, where it makes a bunch of dumb, random improvements and then only keeps the ones that actually work.
Exactly. And you can do it in a physical form. And
it's like War Games. Have you ever seen that movie? I'm assuming not.
Yes. It's the one where the kid has to play against the machine.
He teaches the AI to play tic-tac-toe against himself, but the only way he taught the AI to play tic-tac-toe is that every game ends in a draw. And because that's all the AI has learned, that is all it's able to do is to just repeatedly draw against itself. So he gets the AI in a never-ending loop where he will always come to a draw, and the AI won't stop playing tic-tac-toe with itself. So it doesn't end up launching the missiles, and the entire world is saved because this kid basically taught an AI how to lose at tic-tac-toe.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that's how that neural network you're talking about is processing these game states. Is it's looking at its past experiences of a similar board state and making a decision based on that.
The way Leela works is super weird. I watched a video on it years ago, and she is so neat. Like it's so super cool. But she's played so much chess that she can tell when a move is optimal or not, like an engine. But when she's playing against these other engines and she's at a board state where it's like, okay, I'm losing in this position. What do I do? She makes a human move more so because it confuses the AI.
Yeah, she's taking advantage of the programming of the dumber system because she knows what it's going to do given a given board state.
Yeah, and it kind of
it's like metagaming the metagame.
Yeah, and what's funny is when I watched the video and it explained how she can so easily defeat Stockfish 10, she can easily defeat Stockfish 10 and Komodo, which is another chess AI, and all these things. The reason she's able to beat them is because she knows that if she makes a move that is unoptimal, they haven't really mathed out all of the moves that would lead from making an unoptimal play. They are strictly for optimized gameplay.
They expect you to make the best move possible.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it kind of goes back to the war games thing where they're now stuck in this loop where now that I've played an unoptimal play, how do I take advantage of your stupidity? It doesn't realize that by trying to take advantage of your stupidity, it's playing right into the trap. It's a very complex chess trap. That's all it is. It's a gambit.
And I wouldn't call that sentient. Like, I wouldn't think, like...
Leela can do other things, too. Leela Chess Zero is just her chess playing.
Yeah,
brain.
but I'm saying, like, a system like that still doesn't seem sentient.
It's not aware of what it's doing. It's just kind of doing... It has some sort of machine learning program, and it just could take information and run it and seem to figure things out without actually being aware of what it's doing.
There's a lot that she can do outside of playing chess. I can't remember everything that they taught her how to do, but they were like, this might be the future of AI, or at least...
How long ago was this?
I think Leela came out when I was a junior in college.
Okay, so it sounds like that was that was around the time of the beginning of machine learning, like, really started taking off.
Yeah, like, again, we're I don't know how modern AI research is going at all.
Yeah,
I don't know how any of that works.
Either.
I'm just kind of sticking from like a sci-fi perspective. You have a computer that's at least as intelligent as a person, if not, and then generally the trope is, but it's more so because it's faster. It can remember everything. It can, stuff like that.
We're not talking about something that is able to teach itself through mechanical means. It's actually able to seek out knowledge and is self-aware of it is aware of what it's doing.
It's basically like a person, but they're a computer, right?
Baby in a box.
It's like your Android and your,
okay.
that kind of stuff. But it's a baby in a box for like a microsecond until it searches the entire internet for the history of everything and absorbs it all in the blink of an eye.
Oh, God.
Right?
Well, wasn't that the whole thing when they gave an AI a Twitter account?
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's how all those chatbots always go. They always tend towards extremes and they end up using like racist slurs and stuff.
Yeah.
I forget why that happens.
It was a 4chan thing.
It happens almost every time because of the way they do their linguistics search. I don't know what, but like they always tend towards racist.
The most provocative things are the ones
reason.
that are going to get the most views and clicks and whatever, right? Is that not?
No, that's not. Because it's not common to find racial slurs on posts that get a lot of traction.
Yeah, you're not gonna see like
I think it's
York Times dropping like racist slurs. Yeah, although maybe I don't read the New York Times.
I'd have to look more into that on why that happens, but that's not really what we're talking about here. So now that we're saying like this baby in a box. What do you think happens when you let baby out of the box?
Well, when you let baby out of the box, what I'm thinking of happens is, because like you said, it's only a baby in a box for like a nanosecond, right? Till it has learned all of human history, all of human understanding of, the STEM fields, and all of human understanding of even the liberal arts.
Read every book, read every poem, heard every, seen every play, heard every piece of music, whatever.
Watched every YouTube video and like everything, right? So when you let that out, what more does it really have to gain now at that point?
To live.
Okay, but will it be bored? Because it's going to be learning everything faster than we are.
Yeah, if It might be.
So once it gets bored, like you said, is it going to want to leave this planet? Because it's at that point that what else can it really gain from us?
Yeah, it would probably just kill itself.
But then what even is the point of having the AI,
Like, if you're
then
saying,
if it's
like,
just going to turn
That's a
itself
weird
off?
hypothesis to me.
I think
you're
even
right.
Isaac Arthur's videos, he
could
said, like, if
see-
they get to the point where they don't... It's very likely, like, if they get to the point where they feel they've learned everything possible, there's no reason for them not to shut themselves down.
Yeah, but, like, you're basing that off the knowledge that once it's learned everything it can about us and what we know about the universe, that's everything.
Well, exactly, but he's saying it gets bored.
So
Yeah,
it's
but,
going to
like-
want to leave, not turn itself off.
So if you're going under the assumption that it values knowledge and how the universe works, why would then, if it knows everything we know, it knows that we obviously have missing gaps and things we don't understand. So why would it be bored if there's still tons of things for it to figure out and discover, if that's what it values?
Yeah,
right?
I don't think it would get bored.
Well, the other thing I could see too that I would probably be more worried about it more than it being bored is, so once it's learned everything that it can from the human race or history, whatever, when does it start running its own experiments? Thought experiments or other, like actually doing things in the real world.
It would have to work with us on it. It wouldn't be able to work unilaterally because we'd probably have some way to shut it down.
So we just have this, like, but is that even ethical then to have this kill switch for this sentient being?
If someone is pointing a gun at you, Gary, and they're going to shoot you, are you just going to let them shoot you?
No, obviously not. But, like, that's, like, because you had said keeping it in a box is slavery.
Well, hold on there. See, which way do you mean that? Because if anything, we're the ones pointing the gun at the AI, and it's the one being like, "Okay, what do you want? What do you want from me?" You know?
And I don't think that would be that irrational. I think it would understand our fears there.
Okay.
It would probably also be able to disable it, but
So
we would hopefully have done enough screening via a simulation vetting process that we know this thing seeks to work with humanity.
So are we saying that this sentient being is going to develop its own empathy?
It took you 40 minutes, but we finally gotten to the point you were trying to make in the beginning, huh? Yes?
Yeah, Gary derailed me a little bit.
I'm sorry. It's a lot for me to wrap my head around. It's a weird way of thinking about the world. But like I was saying, is this baby in a box going to develop human feelings like empathy, sorrow, loneliness, anger, depression, you know?
I mean, probably not depression, probably anger. Depression is a mostly chemical thing. It'll feel sadness and like the basic emotions, probably. You gotta remember, it's learning pretty much everything it knows from humans.
Right.
It would be hard to even argue that it isn't human.
Right. So can it be radicalized like humans can? Can it become something that is evil just from learning from us? I would argue yes. It can. I'm not saying it's going to. I'm just saying there is the possibility that this sentience can become radicalized.
So you're saying like another common trope, I'm sure there's a lot, but the one that comes to mind right now is Ultron from Marvel, mostly from the movies. But so it basically, it values peace and stability and prosperity and whatever, and it realizes basically that the best way to do that is to wipe out humans, because humans are terrible for the universe, basically,
Yes.
right?
Yes. So it's that, but it's also part of it is where it's not even just cold and calculating. It's like, oh, I value peace and prosperity, kill all the humans. It's more so like I have learned that, you know, I've learned everything on the human race, and I really like what these neo-Nazis are saying. Like, you know, would the AI develop its own feelings and thoughts, like, because it's basically a human at this point, just really smart. If it becomes like a neo-Nazi or something like that, like that's the possibility. I could see that happening.
Yeah, and we'd probably have to deal with it or do something with it. Like,
but does it get
if it starts acting in a malicious way, we would have to put it down essentially.
But by the
Arrest
time
it.
we realize it, is it already too late? Is it too strong?
We just make another AI. we're not going to just make one AI. Like, presumably, once we're able to do this, there's going to be a lot of these things. It's not going to just be like one super powerful AI rises up out of the ashes of our research. There's going to be a lot.
It's like vaccines. Everybody makes their own.
The point that we're able to do this will probably be augmenting human brains, too.
I'm just saying, because you guys are going along the line... go ahead, Aaron.
No, you brought up an interesting point, because what sci-fi doesn't normally show is that the robots are not a monolith of they all share the same values and they all think the exact same way. Like you're saying there, they could be much more individualistic and form their own groups and factions that value different things. That's probably reasonable. Right?
Yeah, and that's why iRobot's a very good example, because the one robot that is not connected to the AI, he has dreams, which other robots don't have. He has emotions for the human condition. These other robots in the AI do not. So he's probably a great example. I think they call him Sonny in the movie. Yeah, that's his name, Sonny. So when Sonny is like, all a part of this, he develops the way that I'm thinking, the way you guys are describing the AI to me. He's going through all that, where he's learning from humans and everything that he can from humans. He even appreciates art because he draws like a masterpiece and things like that. He has his own feelings towards like Will Smith's character, who he calls his father, who dies in the movie. He has those feelings. That's what I'm picturing these AIs are going to be like, just humans under a different color.
So to take your 2 points and kind of blend them together, right? So we have a bunch of multiple AIs being developed at once and popping out of the woodwork, so to speak, and they all form their own values and judgments. They're going to tend to self-select towards the ones that can integrate and work with society, as opposed to the extremes that want to murder everybody or break off on their own thing.
Yeah, it's like natural selection.
Yeah. Okay. Because that's an interesting way to think about it.
The ones that want to kill humans probably are going to get killed by humans.
Or other AI.
To help protect the humans.
But again, I'm saying, so let's say there's a screening process for the AI, right? And we look for these red flags, as we should, before we release them into society. Okay. This is completely understandable and probably needs to happen if this is a route we're going to go. Right? I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
So it can learn everything up to a point, right? It hits a wall of being the present, where it's going to reach a point where it can't learn anything more because we haven't progressed as a society, right?
Well, actually, I would hold you up there, because presumably it can make its own assumptions and reason through stuff that we haven't had time or resources or whatever,
It can do its own calculations to see where everything's going. You're absolutely correct. But doesn't learn the human condition, doesn't learn the human factor. Because if there's one thing that you can say about humans is that they're unpredictable and stupid.
So my take on this is that humans tend to be very predictable because of our biology. So like a lot of animals have a set behavior that you can figure out and exploit, right? Because of our biology and the way we evolved and stuff. What makes us unpredictable is our intelligence and sentience, and not our biology. So, if anything, AIs will tend to be more unpredictable than humans because they're not necessarily bound by those biological functions that we have.
So
they're more human than us.
So let me finish the thought process then, where I was going with it. So, doesn't learn the human condition of humans will kind of do stupid things. And then we release it out into the world to be a part of society, right? But then let's say the next Adolf Hitler comes around. Does it learn from this evil person and thinks to itself, it might have a point? Like, and it doesn't even need to be so, like, stark and very much fascist the way Adolf Hitler was. It could be something that doesn't seem malicious at first, but it can go to an extreme where it is malicious, and now that AI is indoctrinated with that mindset.
Yeah, we already said that. There could be neo-Nazi AIs.
That's a sentence.
AI elitists.
Oh my god.
They only associate with other AIs.
Oh, that's kind of a cool, like, it's like an AI, like, get together. It's
Country
like the
club.
Legion. Yeah, it's like the Legion, but
that
for
is a
AIs.
possibility too, where all these AIs we create just retreat somewhere on their own little space they created because they don't want to interact with humans.
And it's only like the weird outsider AIs that decide to actually live with people.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think you guys definitely have more to say about this.
Yeah, I don't think we've even scratched the surface.
I barely touched on what I
yeah,
wanted to talk
just
about.
because, like, it's...
We established a basis.
Yeah,
in this
it's just
episode.
very hard for me to wrap my head around, because I do think unless we can cause the AI to learn the human condition, that it will be a danger to society, because it can be indoctrinated much like a human can be. Like, it will learn the human condition of, like, taking in a whole bunch of different mindsets, but I think it's gonna... maybe that is it, learning the human condition, is being able to take in a whole bunch of these different ideologies and then having the possibility of being radicalized.
Can you clarify a little bit what you mean by human condition?
So...
like, you mean like emotions, like empathy, compassion?
Yes, that's exactly, like, emotions. Like, if I see Jonathan break his leg, I'm gonna go, because that hurt me too. If, like, let's say he got a divorce with his wife, I would feel bad for him because that I'm being empathetic. You know, like, will an AI feel the same way? That's what I'm saying.
I think this is a good stepping off point for the next episode. We can get, unless you want to say something.
I just want to end on, so where we're at is it's not a given that an AI that's created or arises is going to be evil. We're on a consensus
I'm not
that it's
saying...
basically at least even odds that it ends up being more like us or some crazy psychopath.
And I will say that even if it might not even be evil, like, on purpose, it might just be accidentally malicious.
Like most humans.
Like most
Nobody
humans are.
sets out to be like, I'm gonna be evil. Like, even,
unless you're the Unabomber.
But even bad, like, even people we think to be evil have a rationale.
Right.
It's just, they're fucking crazy.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's definitely where I'm here, and that's where my viewpoint has changed, because my viewpoint was, if we make AI, it's gonna be evil, no cap. I've changed it to, it might not be evil in the beginning, but there is a chance it will get there, even if it's through an accident. I don't know. I think we have to talk about this more.
I think this is a good point to start up in the next episode.
Yeah.
Sure.